Motorola has taken fair and square aim at the feature phone market and also at the Lumia 520 and other ultra-budget Android smartphones with the launch of the Moto E, which is already being sold at under £80 all in the UK, despite ostensibly OK specs, including a 4.3-inch Gorilla Glass 3 QHD screen. That's QHD with a little q, that'll become important in a moment. It's splash-proof and nicely curved in the hand. Under the hood, it's a 1.2 GHz dual-core processor with 1 GB of RAM running almost stock Android 4.4.2. The biggest limitation is that only 2 GB of user memory is available out of the box, which will impact the installation of many games, for example. Though day-to-day use and a decent-sized microSD card will keep things acceptable for most low-end users. Oh, and the camera is fixed focus. Bar humbug. No LTE either, but there's a 1980 mAh battery that will be ample for the target demographic. The Moto E is better than the previous ultra-budget Android devices, mind you, and I'd rather have one of these than a Nokia X Microsoft Google hybrid thingy any day. Launching a few hours after I put this phone show to bed, but leaked almost entirely, is the LG G3, so I'll cover it briefly. It's effectively a taller version of the G2, but with a larger display and beefier internals. With a 5.5-inch QHD display, that's uppercase Q, and I'll explain more about this in a future show, a removable 3000 mAh battery, a Snapdragon 801 processor, plus, get this, laser focusing for the main camera. Wow. Watch for review in Phone Show 229. There's a school of thought which says, why design something perfectly in the first place when you can just have a good stab at it and then iterate quickly to get to the same endpoint? This is something that Google loves doing with its products, and it's quite clearly that Sony has been doing exactly the same with the Z series. The Z2 is an almost identical form factor to the original Z only a year ago, yet the progression from Z to Z1 to Z2 has seen plenty of refinements that leave the latter near the top of its class on Android. The sharp corners are now nicely chamfered and rounded. There's more use of premium metal on the outside of the frame. The titchy speaker on the Z has evolved into twin forward-facing stereo efforts that are really not bad, if not up to HTC standards. The camera has been getting better and now rivals much of Microsoft's Lumia camera hardware, though not the 1020, of course. The LCD screen is now a very high-quality 1080p IPS panel and, well, you get the idea. Add all the changes up and the Z2 is a lot more special than its predecessors, even if the hard, large bezeled obelisk nature of the design and fingerprint attracting gloss is still not to my personal taste. It's very usable out in the real world too, with everyone reporting excellent battery life thanks to almost fanatical attention to detail from Sony and providing more power utilities than anyone could shake a stick at, plus a giant internal sealed 3200 mAh battery. Even the software's toned down now, with the skin over Android fairly minimal. The main thing that screams Sony is the stack of Sonyware, adware, and bloatware and so forth, though over at least half of this can be easily uninstalled if you really want shot of it. But complaining about this is being a little picky. What matters here is the raw hardware and Android 4.4.2 KitKat OS. Inside is a monster chipset, a Snapdragon 801 running at 2.3 GHz with 3 GB of RAM, 16 GB of internal storage, of which almost 12 GB is available out of the box, plus microSD as well. Top of the line all round. The display is edged up to 5.2 inches, which works out to over 420 ppi and is much better contrast and colours than the panels on the Z and Z1, but it still doesn't hold up outdoors in sunlight as well as its Apple, Nokia and Samsung competitors. Technically, it's a tri-luminos live colour LED with X-Reality. Sony does like its display buzzwords. The X-Reality bit aims to enhance colours when displaying photos like this and videos, a well-worn technique that does seem to work quite well. Sony's insistence on using factory-fitted protection for the glass front and back has at last been relaxed, and here it's just normal toughened glass, no Gorilla branding as I understand it. There's no use of an oleophobic coating either, which is a shame, but at least the Z2 is less of a fingerprint and dust magnet than the older Z units. As usual with the Z series, there are flaps over the various ports here, mini SIM and micro USB and micro SD here on the right hand side. Now on the Z2, at least these two on the left are combined into one larger wedge, which is a lot less fiddly. You have to push all of them home pretty firmly if you want the claimed waterproof design. And of course you have to keep opening it and closing it every time you want to charge, because there's no Qi wireless charging. Unless You use the magnetic dock here and you buy the desk dock. It just sits on that and charges. The twin speakers on the front are a clear copy of the HTC concept and don't really pull off the same quality despite the same physical space. Here's a demo, maximum volume. I'm sure Neil Young would want more volume than this. It's okay. They're better than your average smartphone mono speaker. They're not really exceptional apart from being forward facing and being the stereo. Now the camera. Oh yes, the camera. Oh dear. It's the same 1/2.3 inch sensor as on the previous devices, and in theory Sony should be gradually improving its image processing algorithms, but you wouldn't know it from the output here. Casual users won't see anything wrong, but crop in or zoom in or look at the photos in detail and the sensor noise reduction, subsequent sharpening and other artifacts, they're all too apparent. Plus you get a strange red tint on some shots. This has been consistent across the whole Z line, so maybe it's just in Sony's software drivers. Sony does do some Nokia PureView-like oversampling in the reduction from 20 megapixels to 8, and this helps tame the sensor from ghastly to, well, pretty decent, but it's not enough. And the usual bugbear of LED flash-equipped smartphones' indoor shots of people is as unsatisfactory as usual. Roll on Xenon Flash and the Galaxy K Zoom arriving for review in the very next phone show. Showing here have been a wide range of photo samples, taken in a variety of lighting conditions. Results are, to be honest, still not as good as in Sony's arch-rival Samsung's Galaxy S series, with the S5's 1/2.6 inch ISOCELL sensor usually winning out. Sony 0, Samsung 1. Video is now at 4K maximum resolution, capturing at 500 megabytes per minute. So you'll need a large and very fast micro SD if you plan to shoot much in this resolution. And more worryingly, the Z2 gets quite hot around here when shooting video. It's clear the chipset is working overtime to handle all the pixels, and if pushed too far, the hardware apparently falls over. Though in my tests with the latest Z2 firmware update, it got hot and carried on working. However, you'd be mad to shoot at 4K just yet. The hardware, display hardware, storage, bandwidth, they're not really there yet across the board. Monitors, TVs, and so forth. My personal preferences on the hardware apart, the Z2 is an extremely usable Android smartphone, of course. Although you can't hide applications you don't care about, there's the most used view in the app drawer, with the OS itself working out which ones to show. In theory, this is a great idea, but there's no chance for muscle memory to creep in, since every time you go in, the order of the icons is different. Unusually for Android partners, Sony now only ships Chrome, Google's Chrome. This is a good thing, since it's the way forwards, and Google is still actively developing it and adding in some of the features and flavors and favorites from manufacturer-specific browser variants. The huge battery in the Z2 lasts a fair while anyway, but the power management section here in settings includes stamina mode, that's Wi-Fi and mobile data off, most applications set inactive. Low battery mode, traditional battery saving techniques here to disable connectivity, reduce brightness, X-Loud and X-Reality off, etc. Q background data, which manages your data transmission in power saving bursts. These all seem quite sensible and add to the Z2's reputation as the 2014 smartphone for those who prize battery life above all else. Included with the Z2 are these rather nice Sony noise-cancelling headphones, complete with a new headphone stand. We have a 5-pole jack, count the rings. This works with the microphones in the headset, sends the signal down back into the phone and back out the earbuds, in theory giving you very good noise cancellation. In practice, I was a bit underwhelmed, but I know other people have got good results. And maybe there's a Sony update that's going to fix things for me, or maybe I'm doing something wrong, but very nice to have, and I'm sure Sony are on the ball here. Look, the Z2 is not for me, but not really because of intrinsic flaws, camera disappointment aside. It's more personal preference over the design and the materials. Yes, I like the metal, but it's too big. Look, this is the Galaxy Note 2, which I've been using. They're the same height. How is that possible? This is a 5.5 inch screen and 18-month-old technology. Sony should have either put in a bigger screen or preferably made it almost an inch shorter. Having said that, I know many people who have picked the Z2 up and they love it to bits. Maybe you'll be one of them. But at £540, including VAT in the UK, the Z2 is expensive. The premium materials at least make you aware that you're holding something that's worlds apart from a budget phone, but most Z2 owners will probably be picking the device up on contract. Speaking of which, Sony's biggest problem with the Z2 as ever is getting enough of them made and distributed around the world and marketed. It looks like the Z2 might remain a power geek niche after all, while Samsung continues its billion-dollar push into all markets and price brackets.